It's a big crowd. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to see the communities here, the stakeholders, and I see some students in here, educating everyone. So thank you for being here. The Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you choose, would you join us in a moment of silent prayer? Thank you. We're honored tonight. Colonel Middleton's here. Junior ROTC is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I think Jason is going to ask the Colonel to come in. So this is truly an honor. Dr. Murphy will speak on it, and Colonel Middleton will speak a little bit later during public recognitions about this program, which is extremely important to the district. We're going to present the colors, so if you would, please stand.
Forward, march. Halt. Post. Present arms.
The second pledge, I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Post. Forward, march.
I'm sure if all of you were very, very proud of this program and just seeing these kids up here this morning. So, please be seated. Ms. White, if you would call the roll to establish a quorum for tonight's meeting.
Leanna Bauman.
Here.
Craig Kelly.
Here.
Colonel Kendrick.
Here.
Amy Budano.
Here.
Amy Tosny.
Here.
Board, you have before you the agenda for today's board meeting. Do you have a motion to accept this agenda as published? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. This is the time the board enjoys, and the superintendent, most people are here in recognition time. Mr. Gaston, Jason, if you don't mind.
Good evening. How is everyone tonight? Thank you for being here. We will start with the group that just helped us with the national anthem, the Hoover High School JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps of the Air Force. Colonel Moulton is here with us tonight, and as he comes to the podium, I'll play a little video. It was in his classroom at Hoover High School just last week, and so you'll have some imagery to look at as he comes up and shares a little bit about the program, which is in its first year at Hoover High School / Hoover City Schools.
Members of the board, I'd like to thank the board for affording us an opportunity to present the nation's colors this evening and for the chance to provide a short update on how the new Air Force Junior ROTC program at Hoover High School is coming along. I'm pleased to report that the program has gotten off to a very good start. And, best of all, I have measurable evidence of our progress to pass along. The Hoover High School Junior ROTC program received its first ever inspection in early October. This initial evaluation is essentially a school compliance inspection designed to ensure and evaluate the quality and content of the support the school is providing to a new junior ROTC unit. Now, this will undoubtedly come as no surprise, but Hoover High School earned an exceed standards rating, the very highest possible. In fact, the school garnered exceed standards ratings in every possible measure. Contracts, facilities, scheduling and use, and class credit. In every measurable category, the school was found to be providing outstanding support. The regional director, Mr. Kenny, had words of praise for everyone he encountered. Mr. Hewlin, the vice principals, the guidance and counseling office, and the cadet leadership. He was very complimentary of the positive leadership displayed in direct support of the program, and for the lengths everyone is going in order to make sure our program is welcomed and valued. In fact, he was so impressed by the knowledge, support, and interest that Ms. Cindy Bond demonstrated, he inquired as to if in the future Air Force Headquarters decided to pursue any promotional activities, if she might be willing and available to participate. That is pretty impressive considering that there are over 900 Air Force Junior ROTC programs, and ours is only a couple of months old. Now, we are attacking the way ahead for the program. The big question we face every day is, when will we see cadets in uniform? Well, we hope the answer to that question is very soon. And we're taking on the unit goals that we established at the onset of the school year, including development of extracurricular programs like Color Guard, Drill Team, and the Raider Fitness Challenge. Those will represent Hoover High School at a national level. We're also building relationships with local partners, including the National Guard units such as the 117th in Birmingham and the 187th in Montgomery, as well as other junior ROTC units ranging from Huntsville to Montgomery. On behalf of Master Sergeant Gibson and myself, I'd like to thank the board, Dr. Murphy, and Mr. Hewlin for their confidence and support, and for the opportunity to serve the cadets in the junior ROTC program and the Hoover community. And I would just add as an aside, the students who just walked in, prior to August, none of them had ever put on a uniform, handled a piece of equipment, ever marched. And tonight, we asked them to march into a room without a single moment to practice in this room, moving flags in and out of doors, visual aids, in front of a room full of people, which, quite frankly, to a 16-year-old child can only be described as hostile. So, but I think it shows great measure for the quality of the students that we have. And we truly thank you for the opportunity to serve you and those students. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Walton, I'd like to thank both of you so much for this program. I know this has been a dream for Mr. Hewlin. Mr. Hewlin, thank you so much for your leadership in bringing this to fruition. Enjoyed our students this evening. Certainly is an appropriate time as we just celebrated Veterans Day to say thank you to both of you for your service and to others who are in the audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
How many are in the program?
Ma'am, right now we're at 78. So, which that's actually good and bad news. It's good news because we have 78. The bad news is that we have more students than our headquarters expected. That's the reason we're having a delay in getting the uniforms because they, quite frankly, they expected a much smaller population. So they've all been weighed and measured. We're waiting for the final uniforms to come back, and we hope before the end of November to see them in uniform. And that'll when we'll know the program has truly arrived as we begin to see students in uniform on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All right.
Before Jason shows this picture, all of us did the best we could to go to the Veterans celebrations. There's only 5 of us, and we did what we could. I went out to Green Valley a little bit early, and I don't know if I broke the rules or not, but went into some of the classrooms just to say hello. And it amazes me that the instructors welcome us there. They want to see us there. It's truly a joy. This is Ms. Stonewall's class you see here. Went inside and had a few minutes before the celebration started, and I asked her if I could sit down and watch their students. They were talking about what was good for them. There was no prep for this. They didn't know I was coming into the classroom. This is Jayla. I won't repeat her last name. This is Jayla, and Stonewall is the teacher. This is a very short clip, but this is why we do what we do. Watch it.
I am thankful for Miss Stonewall. I am thankful for God. I am thankful for my children. I am thankful for my family.
I don't know if Joe was here and the teachers, we wouldn't expect them to. If you are here, please stand up.
If we were discussing how brave it is for a first grader to stand in front of a camera.
Yeah, exactly. An old guy with a tie walks in. And first of all, it didn't scare Miss Stonewall. She didn't miss a beat. The kid very involved. This is a first grader. This first grade class. And me sit down and film her, that was the second take. Because it was so impressive, I took it again. I can't, a first grader with that kind of presence is something.
Next, a lot of our audience tonight is dedicated to what we're just going to call the Google Expedition team. Melanie Haynes and Bodas are here with us tonight. They had a reception upstairs. Mayor Frank Mercado is here. He was a part of this effort as well, along with the city and some of our people interested in tourism in the city of Hoover. They put together a virtual tour, 360-degree view of Hoover. And so we'll ask them to come up now and explain a little bit about that and welcome our students to the podium.
I'm Melanie Haynes, and I'm one of the technology integration coaches for the district. And Bumpus is one of my schools, and we were a school that got selected to beta test actually creating virtual reality tours. And the parents and students that worked on this, we got to go upstairs, and they got to view it with the Google goggles. And I think a couple of board members came up to see as well. And we collaborated with Mayor Mercado and said, hey, what about Hoover would you like to see? And so we have 10 scenes in the expedition. These are the students as they work through doing this from March to May. And then we were notified in August that Google wanted to publish our expedition worldwide. So, they had to write all the descriptions, take the pictures, Photoshop them, put them together, and then we had a little bit of work on the other end. But if you want to view it on your own, Google Play Store or the Apple Store app, you can get one of these cards, which I'll leave out there. So you can download the app and watch Hoover, Alabama worldwide. So we want to recognize all the students that worked on that.
We have a few certificates here for the students that came out tonight. Nisa Desha-Shutamir, Lauren Hull, Luke Hunter, Riley Knowlton, Juliet LaVoy, Jessica Miller, Cotton Peters, Madeline Wirt, Emma Roach, Kenneth Lang, Ashley Wilmer, and Ms. Ella Ward. There were more students that just paid, but these all came out.
So when you download it and get to view it, you're going to be really excited. And teachers, if you want that tour, we will come with our Google goggles and you can watch it virtual reality in 360. So, good job.
Hoover High School Band. This program, largest high school band in the state of Alabama, racks up lots of accolades each year, as do all of our fine arts programs. Mr. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Director of Bands for Hoover High School, is here tonight to go over some of those.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm the band director at Hoover High School. Along with me is two of our assistant directors, Matthew Cicero and Sally White, and numerous of our leadership students who are here. And we're just really proud of the program and the achievements that have been made throughout this semester. Everyone knows of the 350-member marching Buccaneer band that you see on Friday nights cheering on the Bucs. And from that group, there are 190 select students who are a part of our competition band and who compete all across the Southeast and represent our school and our community in such a high degree of excellence. We're very proud of them. Two of the things that we've accomplished this year that we're most proud of, on the 6th of October, we went to the Bands of America Regional in Jacksonville, and you can see the medals that are hanging from the neck. They won the Class 4A championship for the overall classification, and also won the High General Effect and Visual Award. So we're, in addition to that, on the 2nd of November, we traveled to Muscle Shoals for our first inaugural state marching band championship, and came home with the runner-up for the 7A classification. So the hard work that these students put in starting in July and working diligently all the way through the duration of our semester is something that we're all exceedingly proud of, and the way that they represent themselves and our school and our community is something that I'm honored to be able to work with them and to be able to help guide them to the accomplishments they've made. So. Obviously, it would not be very practical to bring the entire band. So these are just some of our leadership students who have come to represent the overall program.
Certainly our congratulations, and I'm going to assume there might be some excitement about our new band room. Yes. We're looking forward to getting in that facility for second semester, so even if I have to work during Christmas. So we're gonna get you guys in that building, but thank you and congratulations. We're excited about the new facility for you also. Mr. Fitzpatrick, Sally, all of you, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Too quick. Okay. All right, is Mr. Montarius Miles with us from Spain Park High School? He's reluctantly here, I see it. Okay. He'll come on up. He is the Employee of the Month for Welding PM session at the Academy of Craft Training, and as he makes his way forward, this is a big deal. So this is like the Metro Birmingham Skilled Trades Center, and made this slide right here where you can see you are here, the Board of Education, right off 459 Acton Road, and just due north of us in the Lakeview Avondale district is where this center is located. So we have students from Hoover, Spain Park that get on buses, travel there, and other metro area high schools. Collaborative effort, and you can see here on the left hand, as they describe it, a partnership, public/private, between the construction industry and the state of Alabama's K-12 system. This training program is a model that can be scaled up or down as needed in other areas of the state, and that's exactly what we're doing in August of 19 with RC3. So very proud of that, very proud of Mr. Montarius Miles and his accomplishments. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
I just want to say thank you to my mom. If she ain't up signing the paper, I probably wouldn't even be here. I just want to thank Nicole for putting me in the program. And I just want to thank the teachers that helped me put me in the program. And I'm actually a second year student in the Craft Academy, a training program. And I'm really excited to be there. And the reason why I'm doing it is because just following my grandpa's footsteps. So, thank you.
National Merit semifinalists, this is the time of the year in the fall when the National Merit Scholarship Corporation releases its name of, this list of names of students, and we always have a good crop at Hoover High School and Spain Park High School. And I believe Hoover High School, let's start alphabetically and go with you if that's okay. Ms. Cindy Bond, College and Career Specialist.
Thank y'all for having me here tonight to help recognize students from Hoover High School for National Merit semifinalists. I would like to ask Mr. Hewlin to come forward. I know he's going to want to shake the hands of the students as they're recognized as well. And Mr. Prater does a really good job of describing the National Merit selection process. I'm going to give a brief overview and then recognize the students. As you all know, high school students are very busy. We have things like band and academic electives and all kinds of things going on in the evenings, and a lot of our students were not able to be here tonight. But it really is so important to recognize this type of academic achievement in a public venue like this, and so we are really, really grateful to have been invited to be here to do this. Our National Merit semifinalists this year are incredibly bright young men and women. But they're not just really smart students, they're really good people. Part of this process, they take a test, and if they happen to score in the 1% of the nation, they are invited to participate in the National Merit Scholarship competition. Once they're part of that competition, they not only have to provide a transcript, a letter of character endorsement recommendation, they look at their resume, they look at their grades that they've made throughout, and they have to write a personal statement. And I will tell you on behalf of Tracy and myself what an honor it is for us to get to work with these students and help them through this process and really even get to know them through reading those personal statements. I've learned so much about these students that, we know they're good students. We know they're smart. They take good tests. They show up at school every single day with all their work done. They're always prepared. They're a teacher's dream. There's no doubt about it. But again, they're out there fighting for social justice. They are out there sharing their passions with others and trying to encourage other people to get involved in many different ways, whether it's through debate or math team or Rubik's Cube or, the Hoover Clean Hoover Initiative. Y'all have probably read about some of that going on. This is all inspired through students at Hoover High School and Spain Park High School. So it's my honor to get to call the names of the Hoover students. What we'll do is we'll call the names of the students. Those that are here, please come forward, shake Mr. Hewlin's hand, and get your certificate. And then we'd like you to line up across the front so that everybody can see your pretty faces. So, George Chen. Will Couch. Emily Haygood. Shazan Meridia. He is doing a college interview tonight, so we are happy he is where he is, actually. Anna Mukalali. Abhinav Venkatesa. And Ronald Ewan. Will parents of our students please stand, or grandparents or family members that are here? We'd like your parents and family members to please stand and be recognized as well. We'll get the Hoover students to stay at the front, but maybe scooch a little bit to the side so that now we can invite our Spain Park friends.
So I get to do the tough thing and speak after Montarius and Cindy Bond. So I don't really know what I can add to that other than just some good, hard, fast data about how impressive these kids are, because nothing impresses people more than data. But in the case of these students, it truly is impressive. The first thing I have about the Spain Park students, because I'm just one of those guys that is impressed by data as we submit all this stuff to colleges, is I was going through things. I thought, looking at these names, knowing what type of students they are, I started thinking about the top, 5% ish of the class. I thought, okay, well, some familiar names there. So then I started running some averages. And just before I called the Spain Park students up, on top of their entrance into this program, which came through a standardized test, which again, everybody loves, lest anybody think that these kids are just like one test on one day. Their average GPA of our group is a 4.41 on a 4.0 scale. So they're underachievers. But our the National Merit Program, the numbers on that are there out of 1.6 million students that enter the National Merit Scholarship Competition. That's whittled down to 16,000 in the early part of the year. We get notified about our chunk of that 16,000 in September. And see, the Hoover students are part of this too. The Hoover High School students are part of that, and they make up, as Cindy said, less than 1% of the top scorers in our state. So again, we have a big chunk of that. But then that 16,000 in February will get whittled down a little bit further to 15,000, which I'm sure all of ours will make that cut and become finalists. And then even further in the summer, that gets whittled down to about 7,500. And as historically, Hoover City Schools has had a good number in that 7,500, and I don't think this year will be any different with the wonderful students that we have. But again, I'm honored to be here to recognize the Spain Park High School students that have achieved National Merit semifinalists. And we will ask you to come forward and receive a certificate of recognition. First, Lauren Choi. Benjamin Hartwiger. Rory Luther. Manish Nagaraj. William Scholl. Zachary Shaw. Bryce Thornton. And Anastasia Zober. Congratulations. So I actually have one more honor to recognize a student for. Excuse me. This year we also had a student that entered the competition for the National Hispanic Recognition Program. The stats are very similar. Smaller numbers, but there's about 400,000 of those students that enter by virtue of their PSAT score in their junior year. And we have a National Hispanic Recognition Program recipient, I guess, in our number. And he's one of 5,000 that will be recognized nationally, and that's Savan Ahmed. So again, congratulations to this good-looking bunch too. So, they got it all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Prater, Ms. Bond. One more round of applause for these guys. All right, so I've started putting this slide in here. Do we miss anyone or any families? Because I've been known to do that before. So is anybody here for recognition? Does anybody want recognition? Okay.
I'd like to have Jason stay for recognition. Jason has been named the Hoover City School Employee of the Year. On Thursday at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, we'll acknowledge you officially, but it's appropriate to acknowledge you now, so congratulations. Jason does a terrific job of supporting our school district, and he's always helping me finesse the language so that I can represent well, but when I don't want to talk to the media, I say, Jason, take that, and he grabs it and goes. But Jason, we're grateful to you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This is the time we have public participation. As a public, you're certainly welcome to participate. We'd just like to say a couple of things. Please be reminded that good name and character may not be addressed. Individual student discipline matters may not be addressed, so the board does not hear discipline issues by policy, so that's no disrespect intended. Please limit your time to 3 minutes or less. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? I could have saved my speech. Okay. Action items.
Board members, you have before you the minutes for October, regular board meeting, October 2. We did have a special call board meetings on October 26th and November 5. I recommend your approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for approval of these minutes? Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, Dr. Murphy's personnel actions.
I recommend your approval of the personnel report. We have 28 appointments. This includes 3 new bus drivers, which, as we all know, we need those bus drivers. We also have 1 change of status on leave, 12 transfers, 14 leave of absent requests, 9 resignations, 3 retirements for 61 years of service, and 6 contingent bus driver appointments. I request your approval, please.
Dr. Murphy, I would recuse myself before we make this one.
Okay, thank you.
We note on the record that Mr. Kendrick has recused himself for this consideration of this vote. Do I have a motion to accept the personnel actions for this month? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Mr. Kendrick recused himself as there was a relative on, a spouse, I guess I should say, on that agenda. And as would be appropriate by law, he recused himself. Thank you, Mr. Kendrick.
Dr. Murphy, thanks for the introduction.
I'm so sorry. Ron came and said, please don't forget us, and what did I do?
I'm always here to remind you.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce the inaugural faculty of the River Chase Career Connection Center, and to approve the first members of that team tonight. First off, Natalie Coleman, who has been with us, but will be serving as the career coach and career technology education specialist for both Hoover High School, Spain Park, and RC3. Second, Mrs. Patty Fitzgerald, who is currently my secretary here in my role at central office and will be joining us, which makes me very happy because she's the other half of my brain. It's nice to have both sides of my brain with us there. And Mrs. Tanya Kendrick, who is currently the head of the Health Science Academy at Hoover High School and will be heading the combined Health Science Academies at River Chase Career Connection Center. Second, Mr. Brian Copes, who is joining us from Thompson High School where he teaches engineering. He will be leading the Skilled Trades Academy at River Chase and does many things, works with humanitarian projects around the world. And in his earlier life was a journeyman carpenter and still is. And looking forward to him working with our kids. Vinny Shiramonte, who currently teaches technology at RF Bumpus Middle School, who will be joining us at River Chase and will be kicking off the Cyber Innovation Academy there, which will be getting a fresh start. Next up, we have Mrs. Alina Young, who's joining us from Spain Park High School. Sorry, Mr. Giangrosso. But she will be our counselor, our career counselor at RC3. We have Chef Chris Villa, joining us from Drake Community College in Huntsville. Jeff has about more than 20 years experience, both teaching and in the industry, and will be kicking off our new culinary and hospitality academy. Am I missing anyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining us.
This is perhaps the most excited I've seen Ron. It's about leaving the office with me or if it's about starting the new program, but Ron is putting together a terrific team, as you saw this evening, so our congratulations to those individuals, and I just can't wait for August of 2019 when we open this center. It's going to be special for our students, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Would you explain the job description we have in the central office?
I have before you tonight, board members, a job description. This is not a new job, although I'm going to ask you to approve it. As you all know, we have an administrative assistant to the superintendent, which is our Louise White. Louise has decided to leave us again. She retired, and I begged her to come back on board, and she now is looking forward to maybe finally retiring, she tells me. And so this was an opportunity for me to look at this work differently. And so rather than having an administrative assistant to the superintendent, I wanted to expand this work. And so we have posted already an administrative assistant, which I will ask to be taken down. And upon your approval of this position, we'll post this effective immediately. But this position is retitled Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Assistant Superintendents. Because as you know, secretarial work isn't what it used to be. I'm not calling people in, dictating to them. And so I think we can share this person to assist not only me, but to also assist Dr. Simmons in her work, and the person to come after Dr. Dotson. And so this is a change of title, first of all, from administrative assistant to the superintendent to an executive assistant to the superintendent and assistant superintendents. The major duties have been rewritten specifically to serving all three superintendents, if you will, in the school district. There was an interesting minimum qualification of having a high school diploma, which we have moved to having at least a minimum two-year degree. We have clarified the duties and responsibilities that this person is more responsible to this board, actually serves as your secretary for correspondence, and also this person's obligations to the board meetings. We also have been very definitive about technology in this job description, the kinds of things that we'll need for this person to be able to do with technology and getting data and assisting us with charts and graphs and slide presentations and etc. We have also included, and this was included, board members, today, and I want to bring your attention to it. I believe you have it before you. Two highlighted bullets on this executive assistant to the superintendent job description, and it's number 4 and 5. We want this individual to be in more of a supervisory capacity, in part because we want that assistance, but the other part of that is it allows this employee to be exempt. And so number 4 is that this individual will help supervise work schedules at the central office for support staff to ensure smooth operation of the central office throughout the workday, and also to assist us in the selection of non-exempt employees in the central office, such as supporting with custodial selections and other non-certificated individuals. And so board members, you did have an opportunity to review this before this evening. There are 2 add-ons, and I'd like to ask the pleasure of the board in terms of your comfort with this. The job description, salary schedule has not changed, even though we've heightened the expectations for this job significantly. And the entry point on this job, if you came in at step 0, is at $63,460. It would top out at $72,979. So that would be the range for this position. Not a negotiable position, they'll start on the step schedule wherever they should be, and it would top out at the 72,900. With the understanding, we've not increased the salary, we've just increased the assignments, more or less.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do you have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation of this position? For a second?
Second.
Board members, do you have any questions about this position, the function, anything at all? Okay, we'll say, I don't know what we're gonna do without Lee.
Me neither.
It plainly says in the job description that, to help the board. I mean, there's a lot of times, where Lisa tell you, I'll send a text or an email and forget that you don't work 7 days a week. The ASB, there's a lot of guidelines we follow. The Code of Alabama requires we follow their code. Obviously, we cannot break the law. So a lot of communication goes on with this position. It is extremely important. And I don't want to say that all the department heads are readily available to us, but being an exempt employee, we won't feel so bad about sending those texts and emails, because there is a lot of information we have to comply with a good bit, and all this board does. As you know, we can't communicate with each other for the most part outside of a public meeting, so this position is extremely important. So are there any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Okay, Dr. Murphy, a little bit familiar with the sick bank committee. Would you explain that to us, please?
Yes, I have before you a request for the members of the committee, but first of all, the sick leave bank committee is a committee that is in place if an individual needs to borrow from the sick leave bank. They have to give reason to the sick bank leave committee, and the committee will either approve or disapprove that request based on the information that's presented. And so the person who may have need, maybe all of their sick days are expired, they can actually borrow from that sick leave bank. That runs them into the negative, but they eventually have to put those days back in. So these aren't give-me's, these aren't, they come at a price, and that is you're borrowing towards your future days out of the sick leave bank. And so by law, Alabama Code Title 16, and the Education Code 16-22-9, we are to approve, you are to approve a recommendation from me. My recommendation to you is Carrie Williams from Spain Park High School, but I'd like for you to approve the entire committee. And that committee is Mary Ann McGriff, Bluff Park Elementary School, Tiffany Lind, Hoover High School, Kristen Robinson from Bumpus, and Thomas Sally from Spain Park also.
Okay. Do you have a motion to accept the sick bank committee as outlined by Dr. Murphy?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board on this? Any questions from the public? The sick bank, none of the employees here understand what it is, but employees can donate extended medical emergencies, extended leave. They can donate a day off or days off to other employees, and it actually is statewide. Our committee deals with compliance here, I believe, but it's a very generous program. The employees trade these days in family emergencies, so I've come to understand a little bit more. We see it in the AEA update, so it's very important, very compassionate that the employees do this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you for this committee recommendation. Okay, next item on the agenda is the salary schedule for classified non-exempt employees. Dr. Murphy, would you want to explain your recommendation?
Board members, I'd like to recommend to you the salary proposal that was presented to you at the October board meeting for classified non-exempt employees. This will come with a cost of $1.2 million from local revenue. My recommendation is that it become effective December 1. As advised by our attorney, we cannot back pay or retroact pay this. And so what this means is that that'll be reflected on the December 31 check. And so my recommendation is your approval of that salary proposal for classified non-exempt employees.
Do you have a motion to consider this recommendation salary from the superintendent?
So moved.
So a second.
Second.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question. Dr. Murphy, strategic goal number 2 states that human and financial resources should be utilized in an efficient and effective manner to support high quality instruction. And the first objective there is that we are to maximize our current financial resources and seek a balanced budget while not impeding our progress in our district. It is my understanding, we may hear it later today, but it's my understanding that the fiscal year 2018, that we will be operating at a deficit. We will not be operating at a balanced budget, or we are over budget, however you want to say it. Is that your understanding?
We will share with you, and Tina has a presentation where we have dipped into our reserves $2.7 million for the purposes of capital outlay expenses, more or less related to River Chase Career Connection Center.
Okay. And has there been a plan as far as when we will, do you know when we will have a balanced budget or when the current reserve will be restored?
Right. We do know, based on our presentation of the FY19 budget, that we will again be dipping into our reserves. If you'll recall, the quotes came in higher than we anticipated. Tina, that came in about $2.5 million more. It came in $2.5 million more. And so we do know that we will dip into the reserves specific for supporting that. It is always my desire to make sure that we're living within our means. And it's always disappointing to me when we don't live within our means. But I would say that the reserves are there for such a time as this, when we're creating programs and opportunities for students that I think are as terrific as River Chase Career Connection Center is going to be. But your point's well made, Mr. Kendrick, and that is we always aspire to make sure we're living within our means. But in this case, with this new center and some of our capital outlay, you will hear a presentation shortly that talks about dipping into that reserve $2.7 million. I would hope, to answer more specifically, that that's obviously not going to happen with the closure of FY18, as you will hear. We have already anticipated for FY19 that we'll go into our reserves. I would be exceptionally hopeful when we get all of the River Chase Career Connection Center pieces together that we would find ourselves back to not spending more money than we're bringing in from state, federal, and local monies, and that we won't have to keep going into our reserves. It's not that we don't have the money, it's that we're going to our reserves to cover the cost. Did I maybe halfway answer that for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Murphy, I believe on our future needs, we projected this budget to be where it is. Over a 5-year period, our cash reserves are scheduled to be reduced to a little over $20 million for capital projects for the most part. So this is not unexpected. The bid was a different price here. So we're planning this cash reserves, if that's the proper word, cash fund, has been protected for many years since it received a bond issue from the Jefferson County sales tax. So it's up to this board to make sure we continue to protect that money. We have got to build some concrete. We have projects you'll hear about here tonight. We have classrooms to add on. We have another building that needs to be dealt with. These are positive moves. So this is not a totally unexpected thing. Mr. Kendrick's question is very good. We have got to stay frugal. We've got to know where the money is. So the 18 budget, which is what we're reconciling, may not be the word, but it's an actual budget for 18 is where this is. So we're a healthy school district, but we have to stay that way. So any comments from the board?
I think it's important to point out, being that River Chase was brought up, those expenditures, that the revenue for River Chase was brought in FY17 and the expenditures were in FY18. And so I know that that's some of the 2.7 discrepancy that has come up where River Chase is concerned.
We bought the Pelham School October 17th, I think, of 2017. We had literally rolled into the October 1 budget were interested in buying, everything wasn't finalized, and so that did not get projected in. I had been exceptionally hopeful until the last 3 to 4 weeks, Mr. Kendrick, to be even more specific, that maybe some of the postponement of some of the other capital outlay projects might help us not have to go dip into our reserves, but that was not the case. And so in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've learned this is where we are, and some of those projects will still get rolled out into FY19, the capital outlay projects.
So I just want to be sure that I have a good understanding that, you know, in the face of a deficit for this year and in the face of a deficit for next year, that we are recommending spending another $1.2 million. Is that?
That is the recommendation on the table, and I will say that, so for the bigger, broader view of the conversation, when the FY16 4% pay increase occurred, the school district put in $2.4 million to sustain that. So I've heard some people say, you know, our board hasn't given us any raises, but we have. Because with the 4% pay increase, this school district did give $2.4 million to that. When we just got our raise in October, which was a 2.5% raise, the board put in another $1.5 million to offset that. When I say that, I'm talking about we pay above the minimum salary schedule. And so what the board didn't do is to say, okay, you can get the 2.5% on the minimum salary schedule. We didn't do that. We said you get the 2.5% on the salary schedule as it exists, which means that we pay above the salary schedule. Anytime we get a pay increase from the legislators, this board is carrying a good bit of that because you're paying over. So in terms of that, since FY16, this board has committed an additional $3.9 million to salaries.
For everybody, right?
For everybody, yes, sir, that's right. And so the recommendation tonight is the 1.2 for those classified non-exempt. And I hear your question, and I'll look at Tina and defer to her too for any additional comments that you might want to make in terms of your comfort with this and the sustainability of this over time.
And also I wanted to address, while I had the opportunity, Mr. Kendrick's question. When you look at the financials, the recurring expenditures for FY18 actually, and I'll show this in the presentation, actually did add to our fund balance. So we were above budget for our recurring expenditures. For the FY19, as I stated at the budget presentation or the budget hearings, I did budget a single line item for the cost of this to just prove that it was sustainable. Provided that we live within that budget with, our supplies, our equipment, our staffing numbers. We already know, as Dr. Parkey stated, we did show that we will be using some of that reserve for River Chase. So when we look at recurring expenditures, it is sustainable with level funding, because I did budget level funding.
And so just to be exceptionally clear, with the assumption that we get no additional local monies, we stay stable with what we get from the state and from federal, city, local. Not only are you comfortable, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but not only are we comfortable about being able to do that for the FY19 because it was a line item, but we see this as sustainable over time, and by that I mean we can't give it to them and take it back, right? So this has to be something that we're very comfortable to do and sustain.
Yes, as long as, we don't have, as I said, when I budgeted level funding, that means from this day forward, no growth in the future for funding, that we will be able to sustain this provided that we live within our budget with, current expenditures and staff.
Mm-hmm. But you are predicting some growth.
I am, but I didn't
Hoping for
budget.
some growth, but
Hoping for
didn't.
growth.
Hoping for,
But
but
you
you did
did
not need to budget for that.
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
And stated no.
Okay, we have that recorded as well. Okay, we have 4 in favor, 1 against, is that correct? And so this passes. Congratulations and thank you for the job. Okay, next, Dr. Murphy, we'll look at business action items.
Yes, sir, let me find my place. Yes, business action, Taylor, if you would please.
Board, you have the summary financial statements and the general purpose financial statements based on reconciled bank statements for fiscal year 2018 from October 2017 through September 2018. For the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2018, total revenues and other sources were $180.3 million, and total expenditures and other uses were $183.1 million, resulting in a fund balance or reserve at year end of $118.3 million. Fiscal year 2018 general fund revenues were $142.4 million, and expenditures were $141.3 million, resulting in 8.86 months reserve. Funds spent on capital projects in FY18 were Hoover High Band Room, Hoover High and Spain Park Turfs and Tracks, River Chase Career Connection Center, and playgrounds at Greystone, Brock's Gap, and Deer Valley. Revenues for the Hoover High Band Room, Hoover High and Spain Park Turfs and Tracks, and River Chase C3 were received in fiscal year 2017. Special revenue fund revenues were $22.7 million, and expenditures were $22.2 million, resulting in excess revenues of $596,000.
Board members, I'd recommend your approval of our financials.
Board, is there a motion to approve the financials under business action items?
And I'm sorry if I could be clear, that not only includes the monthly financials for September, but cash disbursements for September, $4,092,681, and also payroll for October 2018, $7,792,642.69.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. Thank you very much, Dr. Murphy. We've been talking about bond rate refunding and some other opportunities before us. Would you explain where we are today?
Yes, I do have a recommendation to you all, and that is I recommend the refunding of the bond series 2010 warrants. I'm recommending that to you for the following reasons. First of all, based on the rate forecast and the expectation that interest rates will increase within the next 4 quarters, upon the advice of our CSFO, upon the advice of Matt Adams, our consultant with Raymond James, and based on my own review and study, I would recommend that we refund the 2010 warrants. At this time, I am not asking that we borrow $12 million, that was referred to as new money. I'm gonna call it borrowed money, since to be more transparent. I'm not asking for approval to borrow $12 million. And specifically, my recommendation, if you'll recall our review during the work session, my recommendation is for the forward delivery placement tax exempt current refunding non-callable column, which was, I believe, option 3, was it? And that was shared with us on November the 5th. I would like to add this caveat, if I may, and that is, should some option become more favorable to us prior to us locking in that interest rate, I'd love to have the opportunity to come back to the table, share that option with you, and then request your approval if something better comes along between now and the lock-in time. So my recommendation again to you is that we refund the bonds, the Series 2010 warrants per that recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to accept this recommendation? A second. Dr. Is Matt here?
Matt is here.
You want to introduce yourself? I think you've been here more than I have.
Yes, sir. Good to see everybody again, and if there are questions, we're happy to answer them. Matt Adams with Raymond James again. we've been working hard with Dr. Murphy and with Tina to hopefully answer y'all's questions. And if there's any other questions that come up, just let us know. But I think as it stands now, Dr. Murphy stated it pretty correctly. We'll go forward with going through the process of doing the forward, and we'll be continuously evaluating all the other options as rates move every day. And if something else pops up, we'll certainly bring that to the board's attention rather than moving forward in a path that is not as advantageous as some other option.
And based, the total estimated gross savings based on the recommendation I've made to you and based on the work from Matt is $7.9 million. Just add that.
Correct.
In addition, the biggest benefit, in addition to the savings benefit, the other big benefit we get is we level out that bond payment over the next 20, 30 years. So
with the forward and the forward only, we'll have a little bit of work to do to actually achieve that. So we will explore the ability to do that, but leveling it out required refunded some of the 2012s and the 2017s as well, just to get some of those early payments smoothed out a little bit. So we'll continue to look at that. We'll continue to evaluate ways to do that, and we'll certainly be looking at that through the process. It'll be tougher without refunding a portion of the 2012s and 2017s, but we'll try and manage that as much as possible. And obviously, we'll let you know if we're able to accomplish that or if we're not during the process.
Is that a leveling it out? Is that mainly to help with budgeting, or what's the
Yes, sir. So basically, your debt service jumps up fairly significantly in a couple of years, and it stays that way through, I believe it's 2026, and then it drops off fairly quickly after that. So just the kind of the up and down roller coaster of debt service is tougher to budget for, because you're budgeting one thing in one fiscal year and then you're budgeting something else in the next.
These bonds are fixed rate, so we'll know what it is. It's just kind of correct. We'll know what.
Correct.
You can budget for it, knowing what's coming.
Right.
It's not a
right.
Okay. You did mention before that you're going to do the best research to find out if it's a private sale or a public sale. You're going to continue to do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We've continued some conversations since we met back on the 5th, and I still think that probably the best method of doing this is private sale. Before we pull the trigger on anything, obviously there'll be a report back to the board on that, but we will probably at least start with a term sheet going out to individuals for a private placement, collect bids back and see what we get. If we don't get bids that are satisfactory, then we'll move kind of more to a public sale.
So for clarification, Matt, the way I understand what's in front of us is that, to answer your question, this does not level out. That between 2020 and 2026, we'll be still paying anywhere from $13.1 million to $13.6 million annually.
That's correct. The current option does not. There may be some things that we can do to kind of assist that a little bit. I don't know that we'll get it fully level like that scenario with kind of restructuring things, but we'll continue to look at ways to assist.
Any questions from the board? Welcome any questions from the public. I know we have some financial people here that are how much more than I am. Any questions? Yes, sir.
How much money do they make off this process?
I asked that question earlier. Matt, if you want to answer that.
Sure. So a lot of it depends on public versus a private sale. In a private sale, we would make a lot less than a public sale, to be honest with you. And it would cost the board less from a fee standpoint, because you've got you wouldn't have to have a rating, for example. Some of the legal fees are less. To answer your question, we've yet to quote a fee. The board will have a full fee schedule at a meeting later. At this point, kind of equated to trying to build a house and not really knowing how many rooms we're going to have, but certainly that information is going to be made public to the board as soon as we figure out exactly what the scenario is gonna look like, and, that will be made available in a public board meeting for sure.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully
Thanks for your
that makes
question.
sense.
Okay, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This passes. Thank you very much for your work. Taking you to the financial department, everybody, Dr. Murphy. Thank you very much. Okay.
I recommend your approval, board members, for our CMP bid 2019-1. The sole bidder was Bresco, and you will, that's the Birmingham Restaurant Supply Company. And the request that's included here is a walk-in cooler freezer with shelving for Green Valley, convection oven, double stack for Rocky Ridge, a tilting skillet, braising pan for Hoover High, a hydrovection oven for Simmons, and a food cutter chopper for Gwen, with the associated prices there. I request your approval for this bid.
Okay, a question, I'm sorry I read this before. How many people do we have bid on this? Hawk Food Service Equipment, Dixie Stores
Those did not bid.
Did not bid. So we had one, who?
Single bidder, Melinda, could you address?
We did get a response from Hall. They were in the process of some personnel changes, and they were not able to complete their bid in time. And Dixie Store Fixtures just did not respond, and I learned from the State Department this past week at a conference that they had started to not respond. They may be liquidating now. So, but it was made public. It was on our website. It was also posted in our front lobby.
Melinda, this happened many times before, not just here. Why don't we get more bids on this? Not just this, it could be buses, it could be whatever.
Margins, to be honest with you.
Well, that's a good answer. So, I mean, you obviously, even though you got one good bid here, you are checking to make sure this is still a good price, or we wouldn't.
Exactly, and actually Dixie Store Fixtures was telling me a couple of weeks ago that with the new stainless steel tariffs coming, that those margins are getting even smaller and quickly. So that could have been the reason.
Okay, so no worries about that. I trust your approval. You have done in the past. Thank you very much for overseeing this. Do I have a motion to consider voting this bid? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. Thank you very much.
Next, we have some obsolete items. The request is to place obsolete items would include 3 special education buses, 2 regular buses, and 1 ice machine. And to place that on an obsolete items list for removal from the district as an asset.
Okay, I have a question, but I'll see if there's a motion first. I have a motion to consider the obsolete items. A second? Jeremy? There are buses on here, I believe. I did actually look this over. You've done an excellent job of getting us top price on our surplus equipment. So I'm assuming these are going to be sold how? Are you going to go out to market with them, or how are you going to sell them?
Yes, we'll advertise them out and see, the local bus dealership here in town is interested in them. We just purchased 5 special needs buses, 5 new special needs buses. We also have been very big, 90 Florida, Dr. Murphy reached out to us last week. They're interested in surplus buses also, so we'll reach out to them also.
And they know what job your department does about these buses being, their buses are in top condition, they're taken care of. Because of the job your department does, it brings a whole lot better price than just putting them out there to an auction house. So thank you to your department for continuing. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I get this vision.
We do have a revision, Dr. Simmons, a revision to our 2019-2020 school calendar. Could you tell us about the revision and share with us the feedback you received?
I'd be glad to. I'd like to recognize the calendar committee members. If you're here tonight, please stand up when I say your name. Dr. Delia Swate, Tracy Walters, Dana Riggs, Diana Miner, Donna Smiley, Stacy Avant, Dr. Deborah Smith, Jason Gadsden, Dawn Blake, and Melinda Bonner. A survey was sent, thank you all so much for serving on this committee. A survey was sent to the employees at the beginning of August to look at how many days faculty and staff would like in the classroom before students' first day. The majority, 40% or 41%, 351 votes said that 2 days in the classroom would be needed. Based on those results, the calendar committee met, and we would like to revise next year's calendar, 1920. The proposed changes would give teachers 2 days in the classroom before students start and an institute. So we would change August the 7th to a teacher workday or professional development day. The student's first day would be August the 8th rather than August the 7th. The end of first semester would be December the 20th rather than December the 19th. And January 3rd would not be a teacher workday because that would be moved to August the 7th. And these are proposed changes to the 1920 calendar.
Board members, as you may recall, this year we had only 1 day prior to starting school. And I think that was stressful and difficult. And so thus the request for the amendment to allow our teachers 2 days before the bell rings and students come in. I would like to recommend your approval of this change to our school calendar for 1920.
Do you have a motion to consider the 1920 calendar recommended by the superintendent?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any concerns, questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes, thank you, Dr. Moore. Policy revision.
We shared with you a proposed policy revision. By the way, I'm very pleased because when we were talking with Advanced Ed, one of the things that Dr. Simmons does exceptionally well among many is she keeps us up to date on our board's policy. And so thus you have this evening a request to approve. We shared it with you last month. Let me please read the revision to you. The board will request proposals for those professional service contracts excluding architectural and engineering services that are exempt under state procurement laws if the contracts exceed $250,000. It earlier was $150,000. It'll change to $250,000 and be paid from federal or child nutrition program funds. I request your approval of this. This is nothing more than bringing us in compliance with law at this point.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr. Simmons, did I say that right? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, do you have a motion to consider the policy revision as stated by the superintendent?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, this is one we've been talking about for a while. Dr. Murphy, I'll let you lead us off here.
Yes, I want to ask Whit, Colvin, who is our school board attorney, I'm going to ask if he would read the resolution, which will pop up on the screen here.
Okay.
Board members.
Because I did not bring a copy.
And I was supposed to ask you to do this, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So, board members, what we do have in front of us is the resolution, which I'm going to ask for your approval. Mr. Colvin has worked very closely with others to draft this, including the attorney for our city.
Correct.
And if you would read that for us so that it's very clear and deliberate what we're asking for this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Murphy and the board. Whereas the Hoover City Board of Education is charged with providing the best possible public education to students who live in the city of Hoover, and the board is wholly committed to meeting that charge. And whereas appropriate funding, especially local funding, is critical to providing the educational resources needed and expected by the students, families, and other residents of the city. And whereas local ad valorem taxes for education provide a predictable and stable source of local funding and are an important component of an appropriate revenue mix for the school system. And whereas, however, Amendment 373 of the Alabama Constitution, known as the Lid Bill, limits the assessment and collection of ad valorem, commonly referred to as property taxes. And whereas the Lid Bill allows for up to 75 mills of ad valorem taxes to be levied upon Class II property located within the city limits of Hoover. And whereas ad valorem taxes on such property in Hoover are currently leveled at the rate of 72.6 mills, leaving 2.4 mills remaining below the 75 mill ceiling established by the Lid Bill. And whereas
The board does not have taxing authority and cannot independently levy, collect, or increase taxes, but must instead rely on the city to undertake the process of an increase in millage up to that permitted by the lid bill. Now therefore be it resolved by the Hoover City Board of Education at a regular meeting duly assembled, a quorum being present as follows. That the City Council of the City of Hoover, Alabama is requested to take any and all appropriate steps under Amendment 373 necessary to increase the present property tax for educational purposes assessed in the city by 2.4 mils to be distributed to the Board of Education, including the holding of an election so that the residents of the city will have the opportunity to elect to provide such additional support for the city schools. That the superintendent, as secretary of the board, is hereby requested to forward a certified copy of this resolution to the city council and the mayor of the city of Hoover in order to encourage them to take the action requested hereby. That this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption by the Hoover City Board of Education, and that will be adopted this the 13th day of November 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler, great job.
I haven't had to do that in a while.
We do not
I've been
know.
sick too, so I'm a little better today, thank goodness. And I'm happy to answer any further questions that you have.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have some questions. If I can entertain a motion in a second, then we'll talk about it. Do I have a motion to consider this resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. We talked about this before. The lid bill is the ceiling, as it states here, that you can collect on Class 2 property. We're not there yet. Homewood was already to 75 mils, so I'm only saying that because they had an amendment, local Jefferson County amendment, that actually failed this last election. Passed in their city, but it didn't pass Jefferson County. Our legislators have helped advise us. We would like to get to the lid bill of 75 mils. What that would mean to Hoover is $3.6 million a year if we should get that far. Now, it's not us passing the tax on you. It's not the city council passing the tax on you. It's just simply, if it goes from us, and I hope it's unanimous, board, and we'll call roll, that we pass this unanimously, and we request, Mr. Murphy's here from the council, I keep pointing that way, that we request the council do the same. At that point, our legislators would draw up a companion bill, if we send it House Rep, would draw up a companion bill in addition to the 2019 legislative session. That will be a statewide vote by the legislatures, not a BIR, because we're in 2 counties, and we're only talking Jefferson County. So we're not passing tax on you, we're just hopefully eventually getting the citizens that live within Jefferson County and Hoover the ability, if we need the money in the future, to have a local vote to do it. Part 2 of this is what Homewood went through, which is to actually exceed the lid bill, which requires a constitutional amendment. That's not what we're doing tonight. But we are going to have some big capital expenditures down the road. We don't know if it's going to be a high school. We're going to share with you tonight some capital things that we're using our cash reserve for, part of it. We have got to be prepared. We don't want to be off this board 10 to 15 years from now and something come up and they say, what was that board thinking? Why didn't they get us in a position to at least vote? So this is a process that takes a while to do. So we're just trying to get us in a position here, along with the cooperation of the city and support, to get to the point that you would have a vote if you live in the city of Hoover and Jefferson County. So are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Yes, sir.
Does the vote, this vote, is it different from the Homewood vote in that, would it be just a city of Hoover vote, or will it still be a Jefferson County vote?
My understanding, Mr. Coleman's more versed in this than I am, but it would, if it goes through the process and signed by the governor, then it would go back to the council to call for a local election. I don't think that is a Jefferson County election.
It's a city of Hoover, because it's a city of Hoover tax, so only the residents of Hoover would vote for that.
And I'd like to follow up on that. One of the things I think that where Homewood failed is they did not do a very good job of presenting it to the public to vote on it. I'd like to encourage the board to present it in such a way that it's a very positive thing for the residents of Hoover, that it is not just a tax, that it's an important tax, in that we don't
that we encourage the people to vote for.
They, Homewood, and we very much respect our neighbors and hope that it passed. Can't second guess them because we haven't gone through it. But again, theirs was a constitutional amendment which required a countywide vote. So they got thrown into straight party voting. It's fine if they did, but a lot of people just voted no, or they straight party voted and didn't flip the ballot over and vote and realize. So that could have been the issue, but Mr. Gesson here will take note. If we get to the point, but you're talking 2 years to exceed the lid bill, it must be called on a statewide election. This particular one, if it goes through the procedure, the city council can call for a local vote. So it costs some money. We can pay to advertise for it if it gets to that point. I think the city incurs the cost of calling for the election. But we're talking two different things. Good question, but that's where we are. Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Patterson.
How much would it increase the taxes, say on a $250,000 house? How much?
$300,000 house. I could get my calculator and do the math, I guess, better than that. $72 on a $300,000 house. I think I'm correct in saying that. So, I mean, is that right?
About 2.5 mils, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot, you know.
So $10 is $375, give or take a little bit.
Yeah, it's millions and thousands. So I have experts that can do math better than me. But it's about $72 in the 40s.
That is going to be voted on with all of the Jefferson and Shelby.
Shelby's not involved yet. Shelby's actually, Shelby's at 68 mills, I believe. It's a different deal for Shelby. The county doesn't include the majority of our, our residents are as deep to the south of Shelby County, so we're talking Jefferson County.
Okay, so that tax is only effective for Hoover residents in Jefferson County.
That's correct.
No increase for those in Shelby County.
Go ahead.
Really, all we're doing at this point is asking the city council will actually draft up the resolution that will go to the legislature, and then there will be a legislative bill, and it will lay out where the increases are and for how much. We just know that we cannot increase more than 2.4 mils or whatever in Jefferson County. And the decision then will be made as to how to negotiate the rest of that. But it's a city council initiated resolution to get to the legislature, and then the city council will actually have to call for the vote because we don't have taxing authority.
I understand that, but I'm still a little confused that there will be no tax increase period for Shelby County Hoover residents.
No, and I've asked the question to people know a whole lot more than I do, and I don't have a clear answer as to why we're not including it. So we can continue to ask that question. Like I said, I believe Shelby County has 68 mills, so they're a good bit short of it. But unless Mr. Coleman can answer better than I can, we need to get back to it. There's a reason not to try to do both counties.
At the same time.
Yeah. So, but we look at it. Okay. Thanks very much for the input. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to call the roll.
Deanna Baumann.
Aye.
Craig Kelly.
Aye.
Kermit Kendrick.
Aye.
Amy Madonna.
Aye.
Amy Thompson.
Please let the record reflect that the Board of Education unanimously by roll call vote supports this, and that we hope that the Hoover City Council will in turn do the same unanimously support it with the resolution of their own.
If I could defer to Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy is our liaison in education with the city council, and I had asked him to just share with us what it looks like now that our board has made this resolution unanimous, and then it comes over to you all. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'll hopefully not try to take you guys' meeting as long as the council meetings go. For us, and thank you so much, Dr. Murphy. And I don't speak on behalf of how it will go, but the process itself will go like this. Currently, we will put it on our agenda for Monday. Then we'll call out a special call meeting hearing for December 3rd. At that particular meeting, it allows our public to have detailed conversations about it, school board to present and talk about those facts. Now, we can vote there, or we can choose to push it back. I'll let the council decide on that particular thing. In the event that it passes, then it navigates to the State Department. Someone have to create a bill, of course. It has to be in the paper, but I think about 4 weeks. Advertising, once that takes place, a vote takes place, and then it navigates back down to Hoover for a vote. If passing from there, then it has to be advertised, I think, again for like 8 weeks, and then it comes in place. What I don't know, and what we need to probably discuss, because the law states that either a Jefferson County or Shelby County representative can bring it to the legislation to bring forth a bill. So that's a little gray area in that situation. Now, this is not our first time doing it, so and that's what I know for us from the city standpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're there, would you also share with us, if I could move to information reports, I'd also ask Mr. Murphy if he would share with us the River Chase Career Connection Center annexation and where we are and when we should expect that to be complete.
Yes, so let's talk a little bit about that. Let me pull out my phone. I have to say this real quick. I'll never forget when I was on the board calling Dr. Murphy on a Saturday, she was putting up a roof on her house. I say this, I'm an engineer, and we have a dire need of folks that know how to do something. I mean the word something, because we get to the point they can't even operate a shelter, in a sense, and we're building buildings that need skilled people. So to have Dr. Murphy and his board see that through, when that was talked about time past, I think is going to be a model for the state and not the Southeast region. One day it may be called Kathy L. Murphy.
No.
Career Center. I had to throw that plug.
You just want it to be the Murphy Center, and you're gonna
You're fast on your feet. So this is kind of interesting, the way annexation works from city to city. Pelham had to de-annex the property. And by rule, for whatever reason, I've been trying to do the history of why it was like that. Where if it's de-annexed, another city would have to, they couldn't annex an entire piece. They had to do it in halves each individual time. So just imagine, I got 100 yards, all right, between one city to the next. I can only annex in 50 yards first. And then I have to have a public hearing. That get approved. And I take the 50, divide that by another half, and I'm at 25. So I think we have roughly 6 annexations. There's one of take place all the way to probably January 7th of 2019. So that's the process. The building itself made it in the first go around in the first half, but we got pieces of oak trees and things of that nature and a couple of fish to put in place. So that's what we're looking at now for the Career Center.
So we anticipate full annexation of all of the property January the 7th.
January the 7th should be the 6th annexation phase, second reading and vote. So you have to have a first reading, go to another meeting, have a second reading and vote. So that's what we're looking at.
And this was laid out early on. This is no surprise.
Yeah, it's no surprise, but again, Pelham had to de-annex their portion first before we can even get to this point. So it's a process. Don't know who came up with it, but it has to be a reason behind it, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
this.
and Derek, please, thank you and the council for what y'all do at schools, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate y'all.
Thank you. We're gonna talk a few capital outlay projects if we could. So someone's controlling this for us. I wanna talk first of all about Bluff Park Elementary School and the proposed demolition possibility for some select buildings and renovation of others. Before we get too deep into this, let me just say this is to start the conversation. We are very respectful of our Bluff Park community, very passionate folks who love the Bluff Park community, love the Bluff Park School, and nothing I should say tonight should upset you in terms of our proposal here. I would also say to you, board members, as we proceed with this, should we need to have community meetings and get additional input, I'm certainly, willing for us to go to the community and have those conversations. But, we also have Mr. Mugg. David, where are you? Okay, so Mr. Mugg is here, and he's helped me some, and so, we may need to defer to him a little bit along the way. Craig, I'm not gonna swat you, but I might need this if we take a look here. So I do want to share with you, if we could, this is the Park Avenue portion of this campus. This currently is the old Bluff Park Elementary School portion. This area here, for those of you who are familiar, you also have a cafeteria, sort of an auditorium area, which is here. There is a connecting hallway down to this end. There's a larger conference room, if, again, you're familiar with that. The proposal that I present to you as an initial starting conversation point is that we eliminate all the buildings to the side and back, but leave the existing older Bluff Park building and the cafetorium auditorium piece. So this would be the elimination of all of the other existing buildings. For those of you who are familiar, there's the old L-shaped building that goes to the back. The thing that we're concerned about is over time, those buildings have become compromised. And as we've looked at investing our money wisely, it does not seem that the best investment of our money would be to sink it into a building that has aged and has become compromised to the level that it has become compromised. So for us, based on our study, it would be better to take those older buildings down. This also eliminates, there's a multi-tiered level. I guess there's a 2-tiered level building there. We would take that part out too. But again, keep the Bluff Park Elementary School original. I don't know that it was the original, but the older part of that building would be kept intact. Would also want to keep this cafetorium for professional development for the school district, maybe community meetings in the Bluff Park community. We would like to keep that. So there's the demolition of everything that's red. And the second phase after demolition would include making certain that we come back to the buildings that are kept, in this case, this section here, and make sure that we renovate that appropriately. We would need to put a roof on that section. We'll need to put some paint on those walls. We're going to need to address the HVAC system in that building. We want to keep and preserve, but it also needs some attention. So demo some and renovate, support, if you will, other pieces of that property. And then as a, by the way, this is the existing building, so this is the entry into the Bluff Park Elementary School at current with those existing buildings. That's a little close for me, so I'm going to need to step differently. If we could take a look at those, at the cost for the demolition and what is called retrofit, it would cost us $735,983 approximate dollars to do the demolition, includes asbestos site, addressing drainage, sprinkler of the existing building, security of that building, a lighting allowance. We'll have to do some renovations of the bathroom that would remain to the section that we'll keep, and making sure that we address any accessibility issues related to that, any mechanical. So our estimate from Mr. Muggs is that would put us somewhere in the neighborhood of $735,000. The second part of the process would be the roofing, and that was one of the things that tripped us up earlier on when we kept talking about the Bluff Park community, because an earlier estimate was that was going to run us somewhere around $1 million. And in putting that roof on, we were going to be putting a roof on a very compromised and old building, which didn't make a lot of sense. So by taking that out of the calculation now, the roofing on that facility would be somewhere around $182,000. We would like to add a front that would be on Park Street, right? That's Park Avenue, excuse me. And so Mr. Mugg has a sort of a rendering here of what that might look like. The thought is that it might be better having the front of that school to Park Avenue versus turning down to where you go into that building now. Here's what I don't like about it, and that is that really all you could accommodate on the first level based on the grade where we're talking, really all you're going to be able to do is to put a main office area and about 5 classrooms, Mr. Mugg.
Correct.
And that troubles me a little bit as I think about the principal's office or the administrative wing really only immediately being accessible to 5 rooms. And then you either got to get on an elevator and or run down some stairs to really have accessibility to the rest of that campus. And that troubles me just from a safety place and just being in amongst students. That troubles me that administrative wing would be limited there. So again, we're just talking. If we could go forward, we do know that we need at least 8 additional classrooms at Bluff Park. The community, in some cases, is aging out, or maybe individuals are choosing to downsize. Whatever the case, we are seeing some younger couples move in and they bring their kids with them. And we get to educate those children. And so we see a need for some additional classrooms. Again, this level is underneath. It would be 2-story. Mr. Mugg, am I right? You can come on up and help me.
Yeah.
But this is this would be an administrative side, 5 classrooms and some additional classrooms on a second level underneath. And so we do feel a need to have 8 additional classrooms at Bluff Park Elementary School. But I'm not jumping up and down about the idea of that split level and the lack of accessibility to the other students. I would also say that we need additional parking at Bluff Park. And this design would allow us some additional parking, and it would allow us also to separate those who drop off students from those on buses. But I believe we only have 2 buses at Bluff Park. So it's not as big a deal at Bluff Park as it is in some of our other schools. But this would allow us to have a bus route where we could come in and drop students off to these buildings, either into here or to, there's a covered walk here, and keep all of our parent drop-offs still to the front of the existing front of the building. Mr. Mugg, you want to add as we go along?
Yeah, do we have the other additional slides, or is that?
Yeah.
There, okay, that's actually the lower floor, what you see in gray, to the left there, that gray portion is actually the building above. In other words, you're looking at really dirt right there. The lower floor is the purple part with that hallway. Okay, it's a, now there was another one with a section cut through that. Do we have that slide?
I don't think we have that.
No, we don't have that one. Okay. All right. So, but part of, we were looking at considerations of keeping circulation, site circulation going like it is without interfering with anything. And yet, what we wanted to do is to separate the carpool drop-off from the bus, which would help immensely in terms of trafficking in the mornings and the evenings and the pickup times. So those 2 elements were benefited, and plus we gained some additional parking behind where we've taken out the old L wing up there. That parking will now be very serviceable to both the needs of that assembly area, where the cafetorium that she was speaking of, it would service that well, and it would still give us a circulation that connects back to the existing road behind the school to give us site circulation. It would empty out through side roads back onto Park Avenue. In other words, it keeps the circulation from becoming a blockage anywhere. So site circulation, it actually helps everything. But as she said, the downside is that while we are more user-friendly towards Park Avenue as far as having a front, it does separate some of the administrative areas. We considered possibilities of having, we're still continuing to use the existing administrative area. And doing that as one alternative. And then having a separate main entrance for public entrance up there on the upper level.
So what we do know is that we need to demolition some portions of that building. We do know that we want to preserve the historical building. We are interested in maintaining the cafetorium along with the wing, which I believe has 4 classrooms and restrooms associated with that. Again, for the purposes of professional development for us and other meetings as might need to be held in that building. We do know what part we need to upkeep on, and that means some roofing and the other things that we've talked about needing to do. So board members, I do see that Bluff Park is gonna have to have some investment of money for demolition for at least 8 classrooms and an upkeep of that portion of the building that we choose to keep intact. So that's kind of a, let's see, was there another, did we go forward? Let me think and so the new construction is gonna cost us somewhere around 5.7 million for a total investment in the Bluff Park. Go ahead, who's ever running? Okay,
I think we have a total slide.
Okay, thought we had a total slide there, maybe I had a total slide in my notes somewhere. So 5.7 million for the total new construction. And that's the initial thinking and the initial conversations, and so board just wanted to start the conversation with you.
We certainly, we all have residents. I keep saying, this is a very historic part of Hoover. I don't live too far south of there. We want to keep the integrity of the location. I've already mentioned it to Tracy, that we want to keep the trees. We have some beautiful trees there. That will be noted in whatever the layout's architectural, that it's their job not to kill the trees. And I know what it takes to kill one, we don't get too close to them. So we want to protect the landscape as best we can. We don't want to interrupt the integrity of Bluff Park and Park Avenue nor on Cloudland. It's very important. There's never been any discussion about demolishing the only part of the school ever that I've sat in. I don't really know where that came from, but I get it. So we're talking about this now, asking for input. What are your thoughts? There's no vote going to take place tonight. We have to wait, Mr. Singh. There's no vote going to take place tonight. We're asking for you to take a look at what architects have asked us to look at, and we've looked at. Most of your board has been up there to take a look at the property and walk through it and appreciate it again for what it is. Mr. Singer, I don't think we're in public discussion right now, so if you don't mind, thank you, sir. Board?
I mean, I think Dr. Murphy had mentioned earlier that if there's a need to have a community meeting about this, that we would be open to that. You know, if that's something that we hear. I like the plan. I think it's a great facility moving forward for our community.
This is exciting. It's expensive, but that's what it takes to keep what's there and also add classrooms. We know Bluff Park's going to continue to grow. I'm not sure we're at 84%. I'm not sure where we are on capacity. But we'll be back up there. A lot of young couples moving in there. They're wanting to move there. So again, looking down the road, this is assuring that we have elementary classrooms available for our students and encourage other people to move into our community. Thank you.
Okay. And then if we could take a look at a capital outlay proposal for Berry Middle School. Again, this is a start in the conversation, but I would say to you board members, we're gonna need to address Berry Middle School sooner rather than later. And so again, this is an aerial here, and this is classroom additions. So this is the front of the campus here, And so the classroom addition would go to the west side of the main entrance at this point. Let's go to the next one. Please disregard these two classrooms because as we continue to think and develop, what we'll have would be 6 classrooms on 3 levels. I don't know if Dr. Robbins is with us, but I think based on the middle school concept and the way he's asked us to think about the design, it would be 6 classrooms on 3 different levels, so that shows 8, so if you'll disregard, but 3 levels here. Again, you're disregarding these 6 per 3 levels. Okay. And just the way it'll blend in on the front, how it'll sort of look on the front. Latham is with us also. So let me not be the architect in the room. Do you guys have anything you would add to these initial design pieces?
The only thing I would add is actually it is 3-story. I believe we can utilize the existing elevator. I'm Sean with Latham Associates.
Yes, thank you, Sean.
I think we would be able to utilize the elevator in the existing building, so I don't think we'll have to add one here. Since this is instructional space, it will have to have a storm shelter in it, which will most likely be the bottom floor of the building. But as Dr. Murphy had pointed out, if you're facing the main entrance, very middle now, it's to the far left. So that this will also, within the project, we will have an alternate to add on to the existing cafeteria space. So that would be part of the project as well.
Maybe.
Can you go back to the first?
Yeah, maybe.
Can you go back to the first? So, with this, I'm just looking at the road that currently goes through there.
The front of the campus.
Jaguar.
Yeah, I know. But right in front of the school, there's a road in between there where you have classroom addition that goes through.
To the parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
How does that, you know what I'm talking about?
Go away.
Would that go away?
That would, yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking a little bit about traffic flow.
What you're actually seeing there going north-south, where it says classroom addition, that would be a canopy. So
Yeah.
that would be more anticipated more for drop.
More for a walkway.
Yes.
Okay.
Now carpool is on this side, right? Isn't that where they?
Carpool's on the
Carpool
right
other
side over here.
And then bus.
Bus usually is on that side or in the front, like where you see those buses lined up. I'm just.
And then drop off.
It's already a fairly contained area there with, and just in terms of, obviously my kids went there. In terms of just traffic flow, it already gets very, very bottlenecked in the parking here, and that's just something to point out,
Yes.
that you're losing some form of transportation, some form of flow at certain times. Not that I have a solution, I'm just.
Questions for Sean? Let's see, can we go forward and we have a projected cost, Berry Middle School, the construction of 18 classrooms would cost our school district $7.5 million estimated.
That's correct.
And start to finish, I know we got weather. Once you decide, once everything's signed, if it is, and start to finish, you may like.
Approximately 12 to 14 months, I would say.
Okay, we're looking based on what the board does, when you would think that would start.
Would really like to get this likely back before you in December. We really need space and let us get underway with Latham in this process.
Thank you.
So here is the total cost estimates for Bluff Park Berry Middle School. The total tag tonight is about $14.1 million. The Bluff Park piece, which is the demo, renovation, re-roofing, and construction, would be a commitment of about $6.6 million, with the Berry Middle School construction with 18 classrooms being $7.5 million. So there's my total slide. There was somewhere. I would like to likely come back to you in December. If not, then by January, asking that we begin to make serious movement forward on Berry Middle School. I think we're there. And in not such short order, we really need to address what is declining daily, the portion on Bluff Park. I do not want it to become compromised and unsightly nor unsafe for people who may be around those buildings. So I really think we're gonna have to give thought to that in fairly short order.
Ms. Hancock, you budgeted these projects. How much of this is falling in their budget that you projected?
I have not budgeted these two yet, because I don't know at what point,
Where to put them? when?
where to put them, where we're gonna move, when we're gonna move forward. If we so choose to move forward this fiscal year, we will have to cover that in the amended budget.
I worded that wrong. Future needs
Yeah.
is part of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're
Yeah.
right, I'm wrong.
It was definitely in our impact study. It was addressed in the impact study, and we shared with you all as we start to invest this money into capital outlay and into our buildings, how that really is gonna begin to substantially pull us down on our reserves, which makes even the case better for us of how important it is that we pursue that lid bill, get us to the lid, which is that additional 2.4 million. So these are the reasons why we would go to our city and say, please help us reach lid. Sean, we recognize Sean, and Carol Coleman is with. Carol, would you stand? Carol also works with Latham. They do a great work for us, and we are appreciative of Latham, and likely will want to go in their direction as we're looking at this Berry Middle School piece. Appreciate the fact that you all did lots of renderings for us and didn't send us bill. Thank you. We like that. And so that concludes my portion of talking some capital outlay, and if I could have Tina, would you talk to us about what we've addressed a little bit already this evening, which is the end of the year financial presentation.
As we have noted earlier in the meeting, we have closed out our fiscal year as of September 30th, 2018, and have already started October 1, our fiscal year 19. So looking back historically, back to 2012, at the ad valorem tax collections, from last year, from 2017 to 2018, we did see an increase in ad valorem tax of 1.5 million. As I said, this shows a historical view of those tax collections all the way back to 2012. So we have seen some increases in those. As we look at our sales tax collections, we did see an increase of about $138,000 from 2017 to 2018, and you can see the comparison back to 2012. Looking at our fund balance, as we have already noted, we have used $2.7 million from our fund balance for River Chase expenditures already in 2018, but you can see the historical view back to 2012 of what our fund balance looked like. You will see the big jump in 2017 where we added $27.5 million to our reserve. Again, that was to cover, our goal was to use those revenues to cover some of these capital projects, but based upon our fiscal year, our school year actually works within 2 fiscal years. So when we received those revenues, we were just closing out FY17, so we have to recognize those revenues in FY17, and they immediately roll in to fund balance. We're not allowed to keep those in current revenues as we move forward to the next fiscal year.
And share why that 27.5 million increase right there.
I'm gonna get to that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me not tend to your business.
So, as I stated earlier, our recurring expenditures in the general fund actually increased 1.3 million. So we did have excess revenues over expenditures in the general fund. Again, the 2.7 that we're using from the fund balance is for capital projects. When the State Department analyzes where we are as how many months reserve that we have, they only look at general fund, and then they also release reports about a general fund analysis that we receive. They only look at general fund. They don't look at the capital outlay fund, the special revenue fund, the debt service fund. They only analyze that for our general fund. And as I stated earlier, currently our reserve is 8.86 months reserved. So looking at the capital expenditures that we actually had for 2018, we purchased buses at $282,000. We spent $4 million on Hoover High band room, Hoover High and Spain Park turfs and tracks. We finished those projects up and spending $2 million in 2018. We did start those projects in 2017, but again, the timing of how our school year and our fiscal year falls, we end up having expenditures for projects a lot of times in 2 years. Purchase of River Chase Middle was $4.2 million. Renovations to River Chase were $440,000. And then, as I stated earlier, the playground renovations were $409,000. So, to recap what those revenues that we received right at year end in 2017, that added $27.5 million to our reserve. Those were the revenues that we anticipated to spend on Hoover High band room, Hoover High and Spain Park turfs and tracks, purchase of River Chase Middle, and the renovations to River Chase. So, with our current year expenditures, when you total all this up, we were able to spend all but $2.7 million using current revenues. So looking at the timeline, as I said, a lot of times these projects spread over 2 fiscal years, and our school year spreads over 2 fiscal years. The timeline of how we added and the things that we plan to do. So in 2016, in October 2016, we sold Old Berry for $10.9 million. In March of 2017, we approved both the high schools turf and track at $3.5 million. In September 2017, we received $9.1 million from the Jefferson County Educational Fund. And then at 9/30, we recognized that we had added $27.5 million to our reserve. At 10/17/2017, we purchased River Chase Mill at $4.2 million. And in then December 2017, we approved the Hoover High band room at $5.5 million. And then just recently, in September 2018, we approved the River Chase bid at $13.5 million. So that's kind of the timeline, and really what you saw there is 3 fiscal years, pretty much. So looking at the transactions that we talked about in 2017 that got us to the $27.5 million reserve, we had the Jefferson County appropriation of $9.1 million, the sale of Old Berry, 11.1 by the time we closed everything. We had an increase in tax revenues of $2.32 million, an increase in interest revenues of $368,000. The general fund excess revenues over expenditures were $3.42 million, and an increase in the foundation and our local match and state funds of $3.3 that got us to the $27.5 million. So that was what we actually increased our fund balance in 2017. Again, we had already started school year 2018, I guess you could say, when we actually are still using 2017 money or closing out 2017. So the results of that excess reserve show that in 2017, as stated, we received $27.5 million added to our reserve. In 2018, for the River Chase renovations, we have spent 2.7 of that reserve. What we are projecting for 2019 is $13.5 million for River Chase, as well, leaving the results of the $27.5 million in 2017 to $11.3 million. And as Dr. Murphy has just shared, we're looking at 2 other projects, and depending on you know, lots of other things, you know, the possibility of spending that on those projects.
And it's probably fair to note at this point that that Jefferson County money was a one-time event, not to be anticipated coming in again. And what was that on that?
9.1 million.
Yeah, the 9.1 million was a one-time deal. And so that helped us here too. So we can't continue to anticipate that kind of revenue coming from there.
What did you say, that was basically escrow until they get it worked out. What do we expect to receive on 10% of the tax money? What are they giving us now?
We just got it, this check, last year it was 1.7, this year it went up a little bit to 1.8.
Okay, but that's recurring based on sales taxes?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Questions for Tina based on the end of the year presentation? Dr. Simmons, would you share the 2020-2021 school calendar as we project forward? We did make one amendment to 1920, and now we have the calendar 2021, and we'll give time for review and likely ask for your approval of this in the next couple of months. Dr. Simmons?
The same committee that worked on the revisions for the 1920 calendar also came up with 3 options for 2021. The options were available for people to vote on from October the 22nd to October the 30th. We had a total of 3,900 people to vote. That included parents, employees, and students. So the option 2 received the most votes with 44% of the votes. So the calendar committee would like to recommend that the board consider option 2. And Jason, if you would go to the last slide. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Obviously, this is not an actual item, so thank you for the hard work. I know that's a lot of input, a lot of thought process. It's not just people having coffee. Thank you. Please thank you.
Tara gets to deal with lots of fun things, calendars and discipline and tons of fun stuff. And then lastly, board members, I have applied for a grant with through AASB in partnership with Assembly. That's the old eBoards. You may have heard of eBoard Solutions. They are going to give 12 member boards a 1-year e-governance grant. Substantial savings to us. Our investment would be $2,000. A good bit of that is of additional cost is waived. What is Assembly? Assembly is an opportunity for us to all go paperless. It's a very comprehensive board management software that's used to facilitate very effective board governance. It allows transparency. It allows accountability to our public. There are 6 programs in Assembly. We will have access to 3 of those programs: the meetings, the documents module, and the policy module. We used eBoard Solutions in a previous school district that I was a part of and was really surprised at the ease of using that management system and the way it allowed us to integrate in real time at a board table policies and or go pull the budget and look at the budget in relation to the strategic plan, in relation to items on the agenda. Very interactive and very much an integrated process to help us manage ourselves more or less at the board table with real critical documents right at our the table with us. So I don't know that we'll be the recipient. I think we might have a good chance for this grant, and assuming that we are going to be honored with that, we'll know that at the AASB December meeting, and there will be 12 boards to be the recipient of that grant. I thought I had the cost calculated here. We would have to invest $2,000, but, I forget what the savings is, probably some $12,000 or $13,000 is what we would be paying otherwise. And I would really like to look at this management system at this cost for 1 year to see how it works and how it feels for us. We may disband it at the end, but I think it's worthy of us taking a look at in terms of managing our work at the table. So we'll see what happens with that grant request.
Love to try it. I've seen it. We all have been to the ASB meetings. It's a very interesting concept, so if we can give it a try.
Yes.
Hopefully we can. All right. Okay, we would like to have an executive session. Our attorney has approved the reason for it. We want to certify it.
Absolutely. I'll certify to my partner next door, that we do need to go into executive session to discuss matters of pending litigation, matters imminently likely to become pending litigation.
There will be no votes taken in there, no decisions taken. We will probably be in there, I'm guessing 45 minutes to an hour. You would know more than that, Mr. Coleman, but we will come back out and we will adjourn without any further discussion as far as public matters. That you're welcome to stay here for 5 minutes or an hour. Thank you.
Next meeting, Craig.
Yes, good job. Thank you so much. December, our next meeting is December 11th, 2018 at 5:30. Thank you. Adjourn.